Tips for increasing your rental income. When the property is vacant, first of all, and you haven't got a tenant in that property and you're trying to attract a tenant in, remember they'll be making a decision of making this their home literally within a few minutes of spending time in that property. So a few things we can do beforehand. Firstly, we should always use professional photography when we're trying to get a best representation online, when we're initially trying to attract people to that property. And I use things like premium adverts on Rightmove, so the ones that stand out a little bit more, having nice floor plans. So what you've done already is separated yourself from most of the things that many other adverts aren't displaying. So you're making the property look much more attractive as well. And that's one way also to position it at a slightly higher end because it'll look nicer. Then you've attracted the people to come and have a look at the property. One of the things that will work well is try and do the viewings either back to back, i.e. you do one at 1 o'clock, one at 1:20, one at 1:40, one at 2 o'clock. Or alternatively, you do block viewings where you have people there together at the same time. The thing with the block viewing is it puts a little bit of pressure on the people coming to view. Actually, there's somebody else here viewing the property. We better make a decision quickly if we would like this to be our home. So there's a little bit of pressure to get it done. And if you're asking for a high rent, they're not really in a position to then negotiate and offer you a lower figure because they can see there's other people there. Now, maybe the others might not be interested, might not be willing to put an offer in. But just that, just the idea of other people being there, the social proof of other people interested in the property can help push up the price as well. And then in the early days, I always used to make this mistake. We'd not really spend much attention on the outside space of a property. That's at the front of the property, but also in the garden as well. And it tends to be a little bit of an afterthought, even if we spent a lot of money on the house. And what I'd find is, and this happened on more than one occasion, where I'm waiting for somebody to view a property, for example, a rental, they pull up outside and then they don't actually get out of the car and they drive off. And I'm thinking, what on earth has happened? And I realized, and it took me a little while to realize this, but I realized actually that curb appeal is so important. That first impression is really important. So making the property look pleasing and pleasant and nice and tidy from the outside, so when they see it for the first time, it gives them a good positive impression, is really important. And also the outside space in the back, just making it nice and tidy. Particularly when we're selling property, although that's not what we're talking about here, we would go to the extent of making sure fences on both sides, even if they're not ours, have been replaced and tidied because the whole thing looks absolutely fantastic. Now, what about if you've already got an existing tenant in a property, you want to increase their rent? Well, if you're renting property right now, if you're a tenant in a property and your landlord contacts you, say, hey, look, I need to increase the rent, there's probably nothing that they can say that's going to get you that pleasing feeling about that sounds fantastic, let's do this. It's always going to be, oh, I need to now pay more rent. And particularly in the market right now, where the rents are so high anyway, recently they've increased significantly. What you find with rents, they go through a period where they're fairly flatlined and then they'll just spike for a period of time and then they're flatline again. And we've just gone through one of those spikes where the rents have gone up quite a bit. And I suspect they'll kind of plateau now for a little while before that happens again. So when a tenant's already in a property, you're not really adding more value to them by charging them more. They've still got the same property, nothing's changed, they're just paying more money for that property. And that can be quite difficult. Now, for a very long time, we never used to increase the rent of a tenant that's in a property during their tenancy. And in some cases, we'd have tenants there for years paying rent, which is really well out of date now, but we would not increase it because it's not fair changing it. And when there's a change of tenant, i.e. when that tenant moves out and somebody else comes in, that's the point we would then increase the rent. We look at the market rates and refresh the rents. But last year was the first time that we actually increased the rents during tenancies. And that's because our costs increased so much and the rents were just increasing so much that we had to push them up. We didn't push them all up to the full rates, but we pushed some of them up to try and get them in line with what's happening in the marketplace. Now, sometimes a tenant might look at that and say, hey, you know what? I've decided I don't want to pay that rent. I'm going to move. And that's fine if that's what they're looking to do. Ordinarily, if that's the decision they make, that you've increased the rent so much that they don't want to stay, they want to move, when they go and look in the market, it may be that the rents have risen as well anyway, and they haven't realized that the rents are now much higher than what they were when they moved into the property. But also, the problem it causes for you is that you might now have a void, a period of, say, a month where you've got no income coming in because one tenant's moved out and you're waiting for another one to move in. But also, you might have to now spend some money refreshing the property a little bit, just tidying it up before the change of tenancy. So it's trying to balance what increase in rent would be fair and what may put the tenant off. Now, if I was going to do this, the way I'd approach it and say, hey, look, Mr. Tenant, the rents have gone up quite significantly and the rents have gone up £50 a particular location and we're under some pressure with costs as well. I know we need to increase the rent, but I don't necessarily want to do that without having a conversation with you. What do you think would be a fair level for us to increase it to? So you kind of change it over to them and, then let them come up with a figure of what they might be able to manage. And if it's reasonable, you might accept that. And that's the way I would do it. Hey, if you're enjoying these short videos that we're doing called Saj Dailies, then make sure you also check out our longer form content that we have on the channel. There's probably about 300 videos that are on the channel that we've uploaded over the last few years, and there's a lot more content uploaded regularly. And if you're enjoying it, then make sure you click on that like button. Also subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, leave me a comment. Let me know what it is about these videos you're particularly enjoying and particularly liking. And once you've done that, make sure you click on this video, and I'll see you over here next.